we're going to bump this guy up to play by play. We want you to do color. And I'm like, sweet. When do I start? They're like, well, your first broadcast is tomorrow. I'm like,
Sounds like me starting a podcast with Jim.
Welcome to My God a Podcast. I'm Jim Wood. In this episode, John Powell and I are joined by Andrew Caraway. We talk about his role in high school football, recruiting, the landscape of college football, his Georgia story, and more. As always, remember to check out the newly redesigned MyGottaPodcast.com to see our latest merch. And you can follow us on social media at MyGottaPodcast. Finally, if you need help with your website or your online presence, head over to workingwebmedia.com/dogs. Now, let's join the conversation in progress. All right.
We're back.
We're back. Back again. Short hiatus this time. I don't know. This is, we'll have to go back and look in the annals. And this may be the closest first off-season episode after the season review. So, so far, goal somewhat accomplished of trying to have more off-season content. But a special one this time with special guest Andrew Caraway. Andrew, thanks for joining and being with us here on My God a Podcast.
and I appreciate it, guys. I'm really excited about this. Thanks for reaching out and looking forward to talking some football with y'all.
Yeah, so for the folks that don't know, Andrew has been pretty vocal about some topics related to recruiting because of his unique situation in Georgia high school football. And so I reached out to Andrew and asked him if he wanted to come on in relation to talking about recruiting. We just got done with the quote unquote signing days that we have here for college football. And Andrew, why don't you start out with giving us just a rundown of what you do, what your connections are to Georgia high school football, and just give us the rundown.
Okay. Well, yeah, I started out in media. I did I worked in radio in my market, and I actually became the play-by-play voice. I started as color commentator, but play-by-play voice of my old school that I went to, Callaway, which is in LaGrange, Hogansville area, Troup County, over here in West Georgia. And I did that from 2015 to about 2019, 2020-ish. My last game I broadcasted was our first ever state championship game that we won in 2020, which was a cool way to kind of go off. And the reason I stopped doing that was our head coach at the time, or he's still here, obviously. A guy that I played for and both my brothers played for. He called me and he's like, "Hey, I got this opening. I need a director of social media and a director of college recruiting. I think with your background, like you'd be really good at this. I want you to come do this for me." And
Hmm.
I thought about it. The pay definitely wasn't like the same as what I was getting in media because I hosted a podcast too, which was starting to make some traction. But I thought about it and it was a good opportunity, and I've been doing that since 2020. Been doing uh, recruiting, and it's recruiting coordinators is what everybody calls them. My title is just a little more fancy because it coincides with my social media stuff that I do. But um, it's one of those things. I think there's more and more of us popping up across the country. A lot more schools are starting to invest in guys like myself who are there to, it's not my job to get a kid an offer. It's just my job to help the kids learn how to promote themselves, but also promote, the program the best I can. So, you know, um, give it as much visibility as possible and ultimately make a college evaluator's job easy. Like
Hmm.
one of my mottos is if it's easy to say no to one of my players, it's also going to be easy to say yes. If I make everything that you need accessible to you, you're going to get told no way more than you're told yes in this profession. You have to just be able to, shake it off, roll with the punches, and move on to the next guy. So, but yeah, I'm glad there's a whole bunch of us starting to sprout up throughout the state. It started out as kind of a big thing, like if you were kind of a bigger school, like a Valdosta, Lowndes, Colquitt County, kind of like obviously they have more resources than a lot of places do. Um, so I work at a little double A school over here, 950 kids, but we're really good. We're a really good team. We've put out some really talented players. It's a Georgia podcast. I'm a Georgia fan, so everybody remembers Terry Godwin's one-handed catch. He played for us.
Oh, nice.
Um, Tank
Awesome.
Bixby, who played at Auburn University, now the Jaguars, he played for us, and a bunch of others. Braylon Sanders, who's Ole Miss, and now he's with the Patriots. So we've had a lot of talented guys come through our little school. So um, yeah, just trying to give these kids an opportunity to you know showcase what they can do, and hopefully it leads to a football scholarship. But we also we work on other things besides, we if they want to. I had a kid come to me and tell me he wanted to be a welder for a couple of years. He didn't want to play college football, and I'm like, that's fine, that's great. Welders make a lot of money, and so we work with them to figure out how to get them into a situation to be successful. So,
That's cool.
um, so yeah,
That is cool.
that's kind of it in a nutshell. And then the social media stuff's just I just handle graphics and hype videos, but every school does stuff like that, so it's not unique.
Oh, sweet. So you're like you're. I mean, this is where the Hunt the Jones relationship, I feel like, blossoms there. So
Yeah.
He's an okay person. I like that. Me and, yeah, me and Hunter are pretty good friends. That's kind of was our hitting off point of becoming friends. Is he was doing stuff at his school at the time, and he
Yeah,
saw some stuff I was doing, and we just kind of hit it off from there. And we've been friends for golly 5 or 6 years now. So love
love,
that guy.
I love it. That's awesome. Friend of the show.
Friend of the show.
Up the Jones. Look for him.
We'll have to, I have to like text Hunter while we're recording. Um, I also I didn't know the announcing part. I didn't realize you're like the Larry Munson of Callaway football. That's awesome.
Well, I was preceded by a guy that did it for a long time.
Okay.
It was Tony Walls. He did it for a long time now. When I say a long time, Callaway opened in '96, so it's not an. It used to be Hogan High School, and then in '96 that closed, and they built Callaway, and Hogansville High became Hogansville Elementary School. They just had run out of room, and um, we moved back to Georgia in the early 2000s, like 2001-ish. So, um, we have, two other schools here that are pretty large. My parents wanted me to go to a more, the teacher student ratio. They like that a little bit better. So that's what started that. But yeah, I got in, and it's never something I thought I wanted to do with play by play. I'll be honest with you. My first ever broadcast, I was a color commentator at the time. This was the 2016 season. I got a phone call the day before our scrimmage game against Greenville, and it was the radio station. They said, "Hey, um, so and so retired. We're gonna bump this guy up to play by play. We want you to do color." And I'm like, "Sweet. When do I start?" And they're like, "Well, your first broadcast is tomorrow." I'm
Sounds like me starting a podcast with Jim.
I'm like, so you're telling me at 10 o'clock at night that I at 5 o'clock have to know what I'm talking about? Because at the time I'd been like a casual Callaway fan. Like I'd been like I played, and then both my brothers played there, so obviously I followed along from a distance. I ran out of I thought I had all this material ready. I had like 4 pages. I ran out of material before the first commercial break. And to this day, I will not listen to that broadcast because I know it's terrible. Like I'm sure there's a lot of uh you know, but learned a lot doing that. Color commentary is you have to let the play breathe. And that's
Yes.
where I
That
started
that's how
studying.
I know you're a good play-by-play, or you're a good color commentator already, Andrew.
It takes some
That you said
time.
that, like you gotta let the play-by-play guy talk about the play, and then you got to find the right time to add the color commentary.
Right. And you don't want to step all over the call either.
Exactly. Yeah.
Um, my first year, there was a couple of times where you'd hear me in the background, like, yes, sir, go, go, like this. And I had to learn how to kind of tone it down in those moments. And doing that job introduced me to some people because, like, I started reaching out, asking for help in the profession, but also just listening to people. Like, I know we off air, Jim, I was telling you, like, me and Jeff Dantzler are good friends. And
Yeah.
Good
listening to him
people.
do Georgia baseball, that's kind of where I would go listen and do Georgia baseball, him and DJ. And I was like, that's kind of the cadence I want to go where we're talking enough, but we're letting you can hear the crack of the bat. You can hear the fans. You can hear, the stroke whenever it's time to change the pitcher, all that stuff. So
Mhm.
so that's something I took into consideration. And then in 2019, I became the play-by-play guy. So having done color commentary, it really helped me, I think, with play-by-play, like kind of feel the play out more, but also allow my partner an opportunity to contribute to the broadcast too. So,
Yeah.
but it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. Called a lot of big games. Traveled a bunch. Got to call games in some unique places. But the final one, the state championship game, unfortunately, it wasn't at the Benz. It was at Center Park Stadium, but it was a beautiful day. It's the closest that any day during COVID felt like a normal day to
Yeah.
us. But that was a lot of fun. We beat Fitzgerald. Um, us and Fitzgerald have a little rivalry, so that was a fun day. So
Did anyone get on their donkey?
no donkeys. No, no, no. I did almost have a kind of a slip up during the broadcast. I think we were leading 15-10 late in the fourth quarter. It was about 2 minutes, 2:10 left in the game. We had a tailback. His name was Charlie Dixon. This kid could have transferred and started for any high school in Georgia. He was Tank Bigsby's backup for 3 years.
Mhm.
For context, when I say backup, this kid was 6'3", 225 pounds, and I'm not kidding you.
Yeah.
And he ran I think a 4.57 was his 40. And it's that plays on YouTube on GPB Sports. But that Joker broke off about a 68, 69-yard touchdown, bread and butter play, buck sweep, ran buck to the left side, 22-10. You're like on the broadcast, I'm like, and that's the dagger. No, no. 2 plays later, we blow a coverage and give up a TD, and I'm sweating it out. I'm like, oh boy, did I just jinx it? Um, but that was a fun game to end my broadcasting career on. So and then I dabbled and hosted a podcast.
What
It
was the
was
podcast?
so so it was a very it wasn't a unique clever name like this. It was just the West Georgia Football Podcast. We uh we over in West Georgia, everybody thinks of Carrollton or they think of Rome. They don't think of
Mhm.
all the other programs that are really good, like Cedartown, Callaway, Heard County, you know,
Mhm.
Carver, Columbus, teams like that. So I made a point to cover at the time. I covered Callaway, but I had a guest, the local sports writer in LaGrange, Kevin Eckleberry, was my co-host, and he covered Troop and LaGrange High School. And so we would just come together and we would just talk ball. We'd talk about the previous week's game. We'd preview the upcoming game. Sometimes we'd get coaches to come on. Sometimes we get players to come on. But it
It's
was a
like
lot of
Friday Night
fun.
Lights.
So yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
I was say this is like you like live like the whole like coffee town thing. Like
I was just about to
what
say,
Wes used to say.
have you
so
given?
Wes was a guest on my podcast once.
Yes.
Oh,
Amazing.
amazing.
That's great.
Yeah, we
Did he
talked about this.
did he do it with the voice? Did he do the
No,
voice?
no, I got
Oh,
him to do it a couple times, but but no, it was good. It was fun. The AJC used to publish links to my show each week because that's how they'd keep up with what was going on in football over in our neck of the woods
yeah,
too.
that's true. They can't just send someone to everything, right?
No, well, I feel for those guys. Any of those beat reporters, I know one. I won't say exactly what he covers, but he covers one classification, but then on Friday he's covering like 6A football
Mm.
game at Milton that has nothing to do with his job, and I'm like, that's tough. Like at the time, like old school Class 2A, you had like Thomasville, Fitzgerald, us, Rabun County, you know. Who, you know, everyone, I love Gunner Stockton, great kid, but we spanked that butt in the semifinals the year we won the state championship game. So
Oh no.
yeah,
How, how did he
the
do in that game?
not well.
Oh,
No, no, I think his like third pass was a pick six, and it just set the tone. Like I think we won. It was like 41-17 was the final score. So,
did he throw it from hash to hash?
so man, I'm gonna tell you, you could tell that he was really talented during that was his junior year of high school. Gunner's problem is he ran into, 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 Middle and South Georgia powerhouses in his playoffs. His playoff losses, I think, were Fitzgerald, Callaway, and Thomasville. Well, those are all really strong teams. And traditionally in Class 2A, if you don't run the ball and play defense, you're not going to win a state title. Like
Mm.
teams like Dublin, Brooks County, teams like that used to that do that. They were more of a, spread you out. They played a lot of what you would remember, like what Prince Avenue and Eagles Landing would do in single A private. They want to throw the ball, a little short, quick passing game. That does not work in Class 2A. That's just people are going to rip your head off. There's just too much physicality in it.
Run the dang ball, Bobo.
Yeah,
Yeah, well,
I'm all over this. This like sounds like my kind of football.
when you got to think too, a lot of players play two ways in the smaller classifications. So
Mm,
like your tackles playing defensive tackle, your guards are playing D end, and your tight ends and H backs are also playing linebacker, right? And edge
yeah.
rushers. So like to get like there's gonna to get you're not gonna have a clean pocket when
Yeah.
you
Mm,
pass. You're just not going to. And so yeah, Gunner, I think, when we played him, we could tell that had a really talented, he was really talented, but we were just across the board, that team, we didn't have a single kid, I think, that played both ways. We dressed about 95 kids on that team, which was a lot for
mm.
that
Oh,
size.
oh,
For 900 students, you have 95 kids on the football team. That's pretty good.
that is
So
pretty good.
Gotcha.
but that was a fun night. But I love Gunner, and I'm excited to see what he's going to do this year. He's a great kid. So
Cows, cows and trucks.
yeah,
Friends, family, and cows.
you don't
Friends,
have to
family,
worry
cows.
about
That's it.
that truck getting stolen. I can tell you that.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know, man. It looks pretty sweet.
Uh,
Uh Andrew, is out of curiosity, I've always wondered this. Is the Callaway name, is that the same family as like Callaway Gardens and Callaway Golf?
Callaway Foundation is who sponsored the school. So, and
Okay.
they're heavily involved with Callaway Gardens and multiple.
Okay.
Callaway Golf is an associate, is like not a like part of it, but Callaway Gardens is a Callaway um, pro shop. So it just made sense, right? Like, yeah, so when you go down there and play, everything in the pro shop's all Callaway Golf, and Bridgestone, I think. So, but yeah, they help sponsor the school. The school looks a lot different than the other two schools. It's in the county. There's a lot of trees, a lot of flowers, shrubbery, and I
mm.
think a lot of that's by design, just to make it look kind of make it on brand for all that. So, but it's a beautiful campus. It's getting bigger by the second. So our new indoor practice facility should be done in a couple months. So it's a gorgeous campus.
Yeah, it's so crazy. So, I'm gonna say this too. Like, I went. So you mentioned Milton earlier. Like, I went to Milton, but not like current Milton. Like, we were terrible when I went there.
Yeah,
But just to hear these things like indoor practice facility is still so wild to me.
it's I tell the kids on our team that all the stuff they have now. Like we have a little facility with our locker room and weight room, and I was like, this is like when I played. This was like forest, and this is where we went and puked during two a days. And y'all don't understand anything about two a days, so.
Right.
They're like, Coach, I'm hot, I'm tired. I'm like, buddy, we used to practice for 3 hours in the morning, go back inside, take a nap, eat a PB&J, and put the same sweaty pants on, sweaty pads, and go right back out. This was like 2006.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't that long ago, but good Lord, I was like, I don't want to hear anything about being tired.
That's great. I think I also just like the whole recruiting coordinator thing. I think it's interesting to hear that name with it being on the other side of what we college football fans think of as a recruiting coordinator, but makes
Mhm.
sense. And that's really cool what you do there, helping the kids out. So
Yeah, it's just it's fun. There's times where the job is a little more stressful than I would like it to be, but like I said, my main job is to make connections with college coaches, and make but also teach the kids how to market themselves. I got a
mhm.
lot of marketing in my background from my jobs, and I think the most important skill you can teach a young person is how to market themselves. Because it's like I tell our players, and I'm sure any coach in the state would tell their players this. It's probably not unique to us, but you know, it's if you can market yourself in life, whether it's to play college football, to go to school, to get a job, to convince a young lady to marry you, to all kinds of stuff. There's being able to market yourself is a skill, a lifelong skill. And I just want them, that's how I get them to think. And we do a lot of stuff on social media, self-promotion. We we make sure the kids and the parents understand like you get out of this what you put into it. I'm only one person. I cannot force a college to offer your son, even though every parent thinks that's like I can just snap my finger and make that happen. There's still things that they look for, and I'll tell you this: like I entered this arena in like it is the wildest thing. Um, like pre-COVID, I feel like I would have 10 kids on my roster that would have a Division I offer.
Okay.
Like because those offers, and when I say Division I, I'm like also it's like Samford, East Tennessee State. I'm not saying these all are like
Yeah.
SEC kids.
Right. Right.
But when COVID hit, getting offers like I just told you that tailback in the state championship game, he didn't have a committable offer until the week of signing day
Mm.
because that's when everybody got that extra year. So everybody was like, "Oh crap, who's going to stay? Who's going to go?" And then basically all the high school offers, they were just kicking people to the curb because people were staying, and
Oh.
then kids had nowhere to go.
So I have a
So
question, like, because, and I hear that term committable offer, but for the people and for me, what is like, explain the opposite of that? Like, so what is happening if someone has like a non-committable offer? I'm assuming that's a thing when we hear a committable offer.
big schools are notorious for this. It's kind of a we're interested in you kind of thing. Like
Hmm.
it's like a kid will come to work out at a camp, let's say at like LSU. And I'm not calling them out. I'm just saying, like, just use
Sure.
that as an example. They go to a camp at LSU, they do well. The head coach is like, hey, I really like you. We're going to go ahead and offer you. But here's the thing that kid ain't going to be able to commit on the spot. It's one of those things where it's like, hey, we're gonna put our hook into you first. And if you pan out, then they can say we were here, like we believed in you all along.
Hmm.
And then that offer junior, senior year becomes where they can call and commit. Um,
Okay.
Whereas there's other offers from, and you'll see this from smaller schools. Like I'll use examples like Troy does a really good job of this. When they offer a kid, it's for real. Like they can, and other schools do a good job of this. But I really, the guys at Troy are close to me, so I like to.
Yeah, I feel like I see Troy listed on a lot of kids' offers.
They're they're very deliberate with who they extend offers to, and now that we've gone from the COVID kids to the NIL era, the extra year of eligibility, all that stuff, it's just becoming even harder to get a Division I offer. It's just, you know, I had a school, I won't say who it was, 2 years ago. They told me they were taking 25 kids, but only five of them would be high school kids.
Wow.
Because they're like, my job is on the line every Saturday, so I'm gonna go get, and this was a group of five.
Hmm.
He's going to go get the third safety at Georgia and the backup linebacker from Bama, and he's already ahead of the game. Then instead of getting a high school player that they have no idea will pan out or not,
Hmm.
Right.
and
Yeah.
and that's getting worse and worse by the day. Is I
I mean,
think
it's a numbers game at this point.
oh yeah
There's just so many there's so many schools, so many options, and with the extra year that just like I mean, the math ain't mathin', you know what I mean?
oh it's tough. It's really tough. Like for example, I had a kid this year, tight end, 6'4", 235 pounds, good looking kid, kind of a raw talent, but he's a talented player, but he's got a lot of upside. I couldn't get, I mean, he had a couple offers like UAB, East Tennessee State, but then also too, what people don't understand is when staffs leave
Hmm.
or move on, a lot of times those offers you're trying to scramble to see, can he still sign? Is this still good? Is the new staff interested in him still?
Hmm.
I had a running back this year, 6'1", 215 pounds, best tailback we've had since Tank Bigsby played here. Not a single Division I team.
Hmm.
His and I think he's going to end up going JUCO because that doesn't count against you now. Like he's had
Right.
some smaller school offers, and I said, dude, go JUCO because you can get the same thing out of it and get in a portal with 4 years left to play. Like so,
Yeah.
um,
Take the Stetson Bennett route.
well, you're going to see more and more talented kids playing Division II, JUCO, NAIA ball. So when I say NAIA ball, I'm talking like Reinhardt University up in Atlanta. You
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
know, they're a really good NAI. We have an NAI team down here, Point University in West Point. Um, like schools like Berry College up in Rome, Division III, they recruit linemen that are 6'5", 300 pounds, and they get them. And they're going to get a lot more of them because that number of high school kids going on to play actual Division I ball is going to shrink. It's going to shrink down, especially with the roster condensing too. That's the new thing we got to deal with this year. Rosters going to 105.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Now
you
there's going to be even less.
think of all the influx of kids that are fixing to go in the portal,
Yeah,
and
Yeah.
they're going to all push that. When that happens, it pushes everyone else
everything
down.
down. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Not to mention when schools like Berry College can start paying kids directly.
yeah. hmm and that's the other thing too with the NIL. There's just so much just wild card out there with who gets paid, how much. I mean, I just it's just getting to the point for me where it's like the NFL's not this wide open.
Yeah.
So why is like college entitled to be like player movement and all this, but like when you go to the NFL, it's okay to have a contract. I think a lot of it, people are like, well, because the NFL has a union. Well, that's okay. Well, then we're at the point now with college football that you're going to have to seriously start looking at this. Is there's going to have to be a union at some point for the players. There's going to have to be scholarship contracts.
Mhm.
Like there's some stuff I'm hearing. I don't know how true this is going to end up being, but like I think you're going to start seeing some teams like a bunch of SEC schools go, hey, we're going to offer Jim Wood, 5-star running back from Milton, but
Terrible
it
running
comes with a
back.
three-year contract. It's a 3-year commitment.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then here's the thing is like you break that commitment and go to leave. Well, then I've also heard about having to pay back that money or have the
Mm.
institution you're going to has to reimburse the other institution for that money, kind of like a soccer transact like a
I was
soccer.
just about to say that we're starting to come into Champions League football and college football, and we're about to have compensation for youth development.
I just think if the players want to be paid, there's consequences of your action. When I say consequences, I don't mean it's like bad. It's just you can't have your cake and eat it too. You
Mm.
can't say, "Oh, we got to be paid. We got to get a part of the pot. We got to do all this," but then on the other hand, be like, "But you don't like Bloody Tuesday, so you're going to transfer." Like that's ridiculous. Man. Like that's to me
You
like,
can't handle Kirby Rage trucks.
well, like I'll tell you this, like these college coaches, like I wonder how much longer Kirby's got.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Think like this
We
already
talked about
reinstated
that.
Kirby. If you look at Kirby right now compared to when he got hired 10 years ago, he's aged 20 years.
Yeah.
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 Okay.
Yeah.
And when you see him in person, he's still energetic, still, happy go lucky. He's got a lot of support staff in place to help insulate him from dealing with all this directly. He's got a lot
Mm.
of smart people helping him make decisions. But you also just wonder from just a pure, he just lost his father, which
Yeah.
is something I can identify with, unfortunately. And when that stuff happens, you start thinking of like, well, how much time do I have? Do I want to spend it fighting with my third string right tackle over a grand? Or do I want to go watch my son Andrew play college baseball?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
he's already set for life. Kirby's got enough money to walk away tomorrow, and him and his kids will never want for anything.
Yeah.
So everything he does for the University of Georgia, like the fans, and I say this as a season ticket holder, like be grateful for what we have. Be grateful for what he's done. Be grateful for how much time we have left with him. Because I think the end is sooner than we all want to admit. I'm not saying it's this year,
Right.
but it wouldn't shock me in 5 years if Kirby walked away.
Yeah.
Especially if stuff doesn't get regulated. Especially if it's just,
Which we
these
already know.
players, man, like Damon Wilson, like, come on, bud. What are we doing? Like, like or think of this. Okay, I know it's a Georgia podcast, but think of a player like Isaiah Bond. Has one of the most iconic plays in Alabama football history,
Mm-hmm.
the Gravedigger play. And you leave to go to Tech, like so like that town. Like those football players are held in just God regard. Tyrone Prothro, who made a behind the back catch in a meaningless football game like 25 years ago, is still like a god there.
Yeah.
Isaiah Bond like could have gone down as one of the greatest Alabama players of all time because of that play, but instead he chased, Texas is over here with their oil money.
Yeah.
Like, hey, And then you just there's so many like side conversations you can have about this, like how sustainable is NIL? At some point, these boosters are gonna be like, screw this, man. Like, I'm not gonna keep paying for like an eighth place finish.
This is
Right.
this is what I'm really interested in on that angle. Is it's like is even some of these people that have this money, like they are business people, right?
Mhm.
And it's like return on investment, and it's like, what is it? What are they getting back? Because NIL hasn't been I get paid for my name and image and likeness, and I do the local car dealership commercial, which is kind of what I wanted. I mean, it happens not enough. I want more cheesy commercials, but anyways, side story. But like, is it enough for these people to invest this money and their team wins? And maybe it is, and maybe you have that kind of disposable income and cool. But like, I'm curious how long people keep shelling out this money without it actually helping their business, right? Without the player actually promoting them through commercial whatever, to impact the bottom line, other than just happiness.
I've thought about it too. I mean, look at Ohio State, 20 million, it worked out. But at the same time, like as a college football fan, I think college football is a microcosm of society today, is we're always in a hurry to be the next thing. Think about it.
Mm-hmm.
Like it goes down to like I have friends who have kids that play travel ball, and they treat that like it's like we're getting rings. Like we're spending 10 grand a year to play travel ball. Like what happened? What was wrong with playing Little League and going to Williamsport and grinding for that? But you're so worried about becoming the next thing. You want that notoriety to become the next thing. And now it's trickled down into high school is you have kids posting graphics transferring to another high school.
Yeah,
All glory to God. I'm going to finish my senior year at whatever. It's like,
yeah,
man, that's soft,
It's high school, bro.
you know. But it's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy. And then you see in college, it's like these schools work so hard to recruit these kids. Now you've got to recruit them every single day.
yeah.
One bad practice, and they're going to storm off and be like, "Oh, I'm going to play over here. I'm going to go look at like how is it okay to transfer from Alabama to Iowa and then back to Alabama before the season starts?"
That was wild.
Bro, that was, yeah.
To me, it's like, what's to stop a school saying, "Hey, I need you. Hey, I'm at Bama. I'm going to tell you to transfer to Auburn, get their playbook, and transfer back."
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like, I'm
What?
starting to think that's like, is that how Tech almost beat us this year? Is like, did they have someone do that? You know?
Yeah, seriously.
But there's so much that's like, you could have like 5 episodes about like just the transfer policy is broken, NIL is broken, player movement is broken, player compensation is broken. It's just there needs to be guardrails. The NFL's not this wide open, and it's a professional league. And if we're in a hurry to ruin college football and turn it into the NFL, well, then we need to regulate it like the NFL.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's no regulation. The wild, wild west is all got to stop. The problem is that it's everything's just so decentralized. Like you
Hmm.
talk about the NFL, like the NFL is intentionally structured. Like
Correct.
there's two leagues. Like you get the AFC and the NFC.
Hmm.
Like I, I hate to say this, but like the writing seems to be on the wall that that's where college football is headed with the Big Ten and the SEC. Like
It's sad.
it'll be the Big Ten and the SEC, and then there'll be everyone else.
Some of the
You only run
stupidest
a bank.
things that I've ever seen in my life have come from this. Stanford in the ACC. So you can tell me that a tight ends coach in Palo Alto, California, who can throw a rock and hit the Pacific Ocean, is playing an Atlantic Coast Conference game that weekend. That's
yeah,
stupid. Texas in the SEC is stupid. Okay,
Yes.
like Washington and USC in the Big Ten is absurd. Like it's just, and I'll say this too. Like I think a lot of blame for this, for me personally, and if y'all are live, streaming this, I'm sure like 49 people will comment on this. But I think Greg Sankey is single-handedly responsible for ruining college football.
mm,
Mm.
I
mm.
think his greed and money hungry to with these TV deals and all this, I think he has expedited the downfall of his own sport. I
Was it
think
him? Do you think it was him or was it the Big Ten? Because I feel like the Big Ten struck first,
that
and all he was doing was trying to play catch up.
I think a lot of it's with these TV deals. which
Yeah.
is what started the conference expansion because everyone wants a cut. It goes back to what you said, John, like decentralized. I think so. The NCAA had a chance to fix all this at some point, and they did a terrible job of it. I think you have to, at some point, figure out a way to have a commissioner of the Power Five
Mm.
and a commissioner of the Group of Five. And I think, because hear me out on this. Why are Group of Five teams going to play in the college football playoff? I'm going to tell you what their record's going to be 20 years from now. 0-20. They're not going to win a national championship against Power Four teams. They're not going to. So why not take those group of fives, those Sun Belt teams, those, and put them in their own league and their own playoff? If I'm
Mm.
at Georgia Southern, knowing I can compete, a proud program that won one AA national titles, why would I not want an opportunity to compete against my peers for a national championship?
Right.
Georgia, Southern should be playing, Tulane or something like that, or playing Jacksonville State for a national title.
Mm.
We
Because
shouldn't
they get the
have.
payday. They get the payday from it's all about money, right? Like it's all about money.
All it's about. College football is so much better when you had to cheat. So much better.
Yeah, yeah. I don't disagree. Like
That
yeah,
was
can
the
we go
self-regulation right there. Everybody, that was it. Like you just had these unspoken rules. Let's bring back McDonald's sacks of cash. That was so much better. Like it's crazy. Like and it's like you look at the NFL model, the TV deals are not with the divisions. It's not with the NFC North, it's with the league.
Yeah.
I think TV deals should be done through some kind of centralized office and then divvied out equally. You have to quit allowing because you're seeing another thing too. Have y'all seen these valuations of athletic departments that have just randomly come out? So
Yeah.
what that tells me, just from, and I want y'all's opinion on this. Are we going to see college football athletic departments sell out to private equity firms?
eventually?
Meaning
Yeah. I mean, I
meaning
think
they own Florida State athletics. Florida State no longer, they're just paying to use the logo. But now you have a private equity firm from wherever that now owns that athletic department.
Yeah.
Like, are we going to see that? Because it all goes back to donor burnout and stuff. You're going to have to find some way to keep funneling this cash in. Are
Yeah.
you going to see private equity start taking over college football? And when that happens, I'm just going to close my laptop and I'm just going to
nothing
I'm gonna
nothing
go
would make
watch.
me hate Florida more than to see them playing at Ben Hill Emirate Stadium.
uh, yeah, I know like one of the versions I've heard of that theory is like, and then like they're not like, are you even a student when, like does the student part of student athlete go away? I don't know.
It it's like we're in such a hurry to get to the next thing. It's like, well, this player, because it was an age old argument. Like Maurice Claret dealt with this too. Like, oh,
Mhm.
I should be able to go pro after 1 year. Well, my thing is like, how about like make where the NCAA should have come in? It's like, okay, why don't we just make it 2 years? You play college football for 2 years, then you can go to the NFL, right?
Mhm.
Or be removed from high school for 2 years because you have like 20-year-olds going into the draft, right?
Yeah.
To like I think Dylan Sampson, Tennessee's back. I think he's 20 and he's going to be in the draft, but he's a junior, right? He's a younger
Right.
guy. So it just, there were so many ways that we could have fixed this. Instead, now it's like I got to worry and sit on the dog vent and worry about like our backup running back, being like, oh, I didn't like my spring practice. I'm going to transfer to Ole Miss. It's like, this is so stupid, man.
You
This is
sound
so.
like Hunter.
I remember we had an exchange in December with that portal window. Like, is there I'm trying to remember because I think you were saying like
The mat, yeah, like
it's
you had
like
to have
the
staff.
sequence and like the sequencing, right? So like how can a coach like deal with this? How can they know who to recruit because of the portal? Just your thoughts on like the sequencing of the windows between signing day and portal transfer windows. And I guess I mean it really like you said earlier, you've got these kids that can't get a committable offer because coaches are trying to get I don't know, I guess the surer thing in a transfer. Um
Well,
I-
imagine trying to sign a class like early December, then mid-December, that's when everybody starts leaving. So it's like how do you replace those kids, right? You just have to go to the portal and do that.
Hmm.
I think for continuity purposes, so obviously, the college football, and see, the other thing is timing. The college football playoff, 12 teams is too many. I'm not going to go down that road.
Yeah.
It's ending later, so the spring semester is starting. So it's harder to transfer in the middle of a semester, right? Just mucking up your transcripts and stuff. I think you just make it to where you transfer at the end of the school year. So if the school year starts in 2020 and ends in 2021, well, you can transfer after spring practice of 2021. If you're not satisfied, you've been in the program for a year, you've had an opportunity to go through fall camp, a whole season, and improve during spring practice. And if you're not happy with where you stand, well, then get in the portal and go.
Yeah.
And now that team has the ability to then recruit replacements for him and sign them in December. You see what I mean? And they're not
Yeah.
having to it. I think you have to have one portal window. You need to have. I think we're getting to the point now where I think Division One teams should do December signing. Everybody else signs in February. That's just because like all of my kids, all of my seniors, none of them signed in February. I have seniors still getting offers from schools today.
Hmm.
Like that's how broken everything is. Like and it's there's no way to like make it like if I was 18 and I've got like 5 offers from like D3 schools and then I'm trying to like make a decision and I've got like another school that offers me, it's like that's so confusing
Yeah.
to the kids. I think there's just got to be some kind of continuity, but also too, just think of the college coaches, and I don't want to hear like, well, they get paid 10 million. That's great, but they're still human. There's still health issues involved. There's still family. There's still like these coaches. If you want Kirby to coach more, we should encourage there to be less of this, right? If Bama fans wanted Saban around more, they should have been clamoring for one transfer window,
Hmm.
one signing day, more dead period. I want Kirby and Cabo more and during the off season. I want him and Cabo for 4 months. I want him to come back with a 30 pounds lighter and ready to roll. Like that's you know what I mean? That's what I want.
I
I
don't
want
know if he's
Yeah.
going to Cabo for more often than he might not be 30 pounds lighter.
that may be hard to do. But yeah, there's got to be some kind of consistency because just I mean, and everybody's like, well, you can transfer from your job and you can leave your job, but this isn't that.
I was just about to say, I was just about to ask or throw a wrench into your like comments about Greg Sankey ruining the sport. I actually think that it all kind of started with coaches, like coaches being able to maneuver wherever they want to go, whenever they want to go, and there's no willy-nilly
Mm,
there's no willy-nilly about it. Like there's no commitment on the coaches level. And you had situations like frankly, like to use the UGA example,
mm,
everyone's asking questions about why Bobo is still around. Why is
mm,
Stacey Searle still around? And you had made the comment like with the way that the calendar sets up, like you want your coaches out on the road for a certain period of time, and then there's the dead periods, and then the soft open periods, and then there's all this stuff associated with signing day.
yeah.
And like if you were to make a coaching change, you're shooting yourself in the foot from
Mhm.
a getting coaches in homes and making visits and all that kind of stuff. So like if any coaching changes were going to happen, they probably would have happened around this time or possibly later, right? So like if you're letting kids, like the flip side of that is that you're letting all these kids come in, like Monken last year when he left at the end of February, right? He goes off and gets his job and goes off to the NFL, but we had already recruited all these kids that were under the impression they were going to be playing for him, right? So like the coaches in a way have kind of fostered this free willy-nilly situation that we have right now because that's just what we've allowed to happen here. And like you said, if there's not a centralization, it's just going to continue to happen. And I don't know that the centralization is ever. I don't know that the powers that be in college football are ever truly going to relinquish that power to one entity. Like the
Nick
the
Saban
marriage.
would be perfect for this. I
I,
sign me up for 10 years of that. Not, he'd be like having Doge full time in college football. Just sign me up. I'm in.
As
let's
long as it's
let's
not Herb Street.
no, because Ohio State will be able to tamper 24/7 and he won't see anything. Now he's got to watch out though. His boy plays for Michigan now. That's an interesting dynamic in that whole thing. His youngest son signed with Michigan, so
It is
that's an
interesting.
interesting dynamic
It is
there.
interesting.
Casualty of the 105 roster limit.
Hmm.
So yeah, I'm with you though, John. I don't disagree with you. I think there's probably a way to uniform coaching movements too. Like now, coaches get fired and at all times during the year, but I wonder when it comes to like that, is there a way to uniform like that when it comes to, because there's ways that schools combat it, with the buyouts, when they
Hmm.
have the stuff. And that's where I've like pitched it for like if players are going to leave, then I feel like so if a player leaves Georgia for Auburn, Auburn should pay Georgia a buyout. Whatever
Yeah.
Georgia has invested in that player, Auburn should have to pay to Georgia
Yeah.
for that.
Exactly.
But they should have to have some skin in the game. And
Hmm.
my thing is too is like you start introducing contracts. Well, I would make them all a 3-year minimum or 2-year minimum. I wouldn't do year to years ever.
Yeah. For sure.
And make it harder. If the kid wants to move on, that's fine. There's one transfer window. And I'm to the point too. It's like I'm all for letting them transfer one time.
Yeah.
Anywhere you want to go, transfer. After that, buddy, we don't need 17 helmet decals at your senior bowl helmet. Like we don't need that. Okay, we're not trying to keep. It's like at that point, it's like what is that guy Finley that used to play at Auburn? What's his that quarterback? Isn't he like on his seventh team?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I would say that
There's a few guys like that.
I would add a layer of complexity there for graduate transfers. I always loved that rule that once you graduated, like you could go wherever you wanted to.
I think that's like also too. It's like why don't that make that part of it too and say, hey, you play here, but if you want to transfer, graduate and leave because then you
Hmm.
incentivize them getting their degree as well.
Hmm.
Because at the end of the day, like the reason why NIL is so broken is there's so many families that come from difficult situations and they come from nothing, and you have a random guy say, well, I'll pay your son $10,000 to come here. Well, that's like the lottery ticket,
Hmm.
right? And there's a lot of people that are desperate for that. And I'm seeing it all the time in my profession, with high school kids. It's like, you have these NIL opportunities for people that don't have a whole lot going for them. And I think we've got to do a better job too. If this is the new future for college football, I think like the state of Georgia needs to do a better job of making sure that, things like money management are prevalent in high schools where we're learning how to manage our money, how to handle contracts, how to handle what's a
Access.
mortgage, taxes, 1099s. Like we need to start introducing this and maybe a little less algebra 2 and a little bit more money management. You know, there's things I took in high school that I've never used in my life.
Amen.
I'm
Amen.
not, I'm not
Amen.
saying it's like not valuable, but like I would have loved to learn how to balance a checkbook. I would have loved to learn how to invest. I would have loved to learn about, real estate properties,
Hmm.
investment properties. But like, you know, there's a whole trickle down effect is if we want kids, if kids are going to be handling this, because also think of this, there's so many kids that have agents. A
Hmm.
lot of it's just like Uncle Ricky that is the handler for them in taking 20, 30, 40, 50% of the NIL money.
Hmm.
There's so many people out here taking advantage of the kids too. And that's where I think it's really important I think for high schools to have more kind of awareness in, teaching kids how to manage contracts, how to manage money, how to think for themselves. They're
Yeah.
so interested in getting the bag. I'm gonna sound like an old man here, still a millennial, but like it's like they spend more time on that than thinking about like 4 years down the road.
Yeah. Yeah. Is Carter has joined. Carter has
Sorry,
joined the
Carter.
chat. Sorry,
I'm all
Carter.
in.
Um, in Georgia, I know there's some states where like you're allowed to earn NIL technically even in high school or
Mhm.
whatever. Like, is it against GHSA or anything? What is Georgia like? I don't even know what North Carolina is like. I live in
It's
North
so
Carolina.
complicated. It's
Okay.
so complicated. Like you can, but like you can't wear your team, and you can't be on school property. You can't wear any of your team paraphernalia or logo. You can't there's a whole list of things, and
Okay.
it has to be the business paying you. It can't be like a booster who owns a bit. It's got to be like a loan entity. And I've got so many feelings on this. Like when we had kids in the state making NIL money, getting paid all this money and they never won a state championship,
Mm,
you know? And
yeah.
it's like you hear about a kid at Michigan who got paid what 19 million bucks or whatever it was to go there. What if he sucks? You know what I mean? Like what if he's terrible? And it's like that's where I'm saying like all this stuff's broken. It's like
The incentive to work hard is also not as strong as it once was as well. Like, because in the back of your mind, you're like, I could just bankroll this $9 million for a good chunk of the rest of my life.
it makes it easier to tell your coaches where to stick it,
Pound sand.
you know? Yeah. It's you saw a lot of stories come out and I'll give multiple people shout outs here, like, like the dog vent or like Dogs HQ or these other like message boards like Roddy and Nabulsi and Rusty and those guys like
Friend of
run
the
the
show.
boards. And it's amazing when certain people left Georgia that there was suddenly a lot of details on the work ethic of those.
Yeah.
Mm,
And look, I like Carson Beck. I've I was one of the few guys that like during his, throw in one interception, get two for free, kind of thing he was dealing with. Like I would support him because there was a lot of it that wasn't on him during those games. There was a lot of, but I think there was a reason in the second half of the SEC championship game that team locked in.
mhm.
You didn't see drop passes. You didn't see mental errors. You didn't see. Now, was the game plan vanilla? Yeah, it had to be because you had to back up quarterback in. But at the end of the day, the guys rallied around Gunnar Stockton,
Gunner
which
throws a catchable ball.
throws a catchable ball, but also he's not flying out immediately after practice to go to Miami. He's not rolling around all in his Lambo, all this stuff and rubbing people the wrong way. There's so many stories of star players sharing their NIL money with their teammates. I'm not saying Carson never did, but I
Goofy
had heard the
Daniels.
story that he did,
Yeah.
you know, as the quarterback. Um, this team just felt like something did not click with this group, and I think a lot of it was NIL entitlement. Like we're not going to see 2021 or 22 again. I think 22 was like the last like true national title, like the way college football was meant to be. Like
Mm.
recruiting, kids want to be there. Guys like Nolan Smith who, F it, I'm going to hit somebody with a torn bicep because I'm Nolan F. and Smith, and that's what I'm like that's like we don't have guys like that, like and there's guys like on this team like Jalen Walker, love Jalen Walker,
Mm.
CJ Allen, a great player, but like for those kind of guys, you had guys like, that were not locked in and who thought they could just roll their Georgia helmet out and it was going to solve everything. Now I do have one thing from this last season I've always wondered is what if Georgia had beaten Alabama?
Mm.
What if the comeback had happened? Do things go differently for that team? You know what I mean? Like, or do you feel like it's still the same old, same old?
I mean, my personal opinion is that we should have won that game.
Oh, I agree, 1,000%. I that we made Jalen Miller look like Tom Brady for 30 minutes, and it
Yeah.
was done.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, that's this season. But I think John and Jim, you brought up some good points about. I think there's just a lack when you're paid like that. Are you really watching film, or are you just sitting in there texting on your phone, looking like you're watching film, just so your coaches see it? Are
Yeah.
you really? Mike Bobo was the same OC in 2023, and that was a damn good offense. We scored a lot of points. We blew out a lot of teams, a lot of really good football teams that year. Now, did we have better players? Yeah, like you had really good players, but like some of these guys, like Dylan Bell, okay, like the other night I was telling you off air, like I watch my little boy and me, we watch like one 15-minute montage of a game. The other last night was 2023 Tennessee. Seeing the catches Dylan Bell made in that game and then watching him this year, like what happened to him?
Hmm.
What happened to Arian Smith? Arian Smith didn't have drop issues really throughout. He always 2022 Tennessee. Who went deep and got us back in that game? Arian Smith.
Yeah.
Arian Smith, Ohio State. Arian Smith, fourth down, 2021 against Missouri, catches a dime from Stetson Bennett.
Yeah.
Why all of a sudden can he not catch? Is it too much was put on him? Was he given too much volume because he was the only reliable person, so that for his margin for error was less? So when he did screw up, it stood out like a sore thumb, you know?
Yeah, the volume change was enormous for him because he was kind of like a gadget. I'm not saying like gadget plays so much, but like he was a spot guy his career until this year, and then all of a sudden he's number one receiver. Although
He's a
then
good 4
Sugar
or
Bowl he
5.
wasn't, which was weird, but whatever.
Well, the Sugar Bowl, he was just like, "This is it. I got to go out on top here." Like, you know what I mean? Like he's
Yeah,
like,
but we didn't throw to him enough. Sorry, not to
and then
relitigate the Sugar Bowl.
Dylan Bell's like, "No, I'm gonna let Cash catch this TD. I don't want it."
Oh man,
But
yeah,
yeah, this whole season was just really, it was just really odd not being able to run the football. That was the other thing.
yeah.
But like I told you, Jim, before we got started, there's just some interesting things I'm learning through this draft process on like Trevor Etienne, like just and having my friend at PFF kind of go through it with me and show me like, man, there's holes here to run through, and he's making a bad decision. Like he's going the wrong way. And they were saying Trevor Etienne is like a really good player, but his vision was not good, was not great. And I see I'm one of those who's like I don't want to see that because all I see is like ISO beat Texas, SEC champions. But he's like, but for every one of those, how many times did he bounce back and didn't need to? How many times did he give up on a blocking scheme where it was there? And I was like, I don't have to go back and watch the tape, but I think there's so much that went into this season that was just like just not normal. That I think it's just easy to say Bobo sucks. Well,
Yeah, I
at some
mean, there's
point,
there's there's only so much of that that I can tolerate. Like to a certain extent, the Sugar Bowl was like maybe a tipping point for me in some of
mhm.
that. But
Yeah, yeah.
like at the same time, like you go back and even looking, I mean, from the first snap of the game in the Sugar Bowl, like there are guys whiffing blocks left and right. Like
Freeling was getting roasted out there.
yeah, I mean, like there's only so much a coach can do in situation where players are just not executing, which that kind of boils up to it's the coach's job to get the players ready to play and all that kind of stuff. But like, I don't know, it just felt like that this season was just an egregiousness of combination of injuries,
Mhm.
youth, inexperience that Kirby talked about before the season, and I mean, I remember telling Jim, I was like, dude, I don't know if you guys realize this or not, but like, there's a ton of young guys on the defense right now. There's so many young players out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and that's might be why we are seeing some of the things that we're seeing, but like, I don't know, the not to get off topic of talking about recruiting and going back to the season rehash, but
Oh
um,
no, I'm with you. It there was times in that shirt ball I was like, hey, that jailbreak screen that everybody screams at Bubba for, that was a Todd Monken staple.
Yeah.
I would love to see like 50 to 70 more of those. But we never threw one in that game because I was like, if you
it's
can't
hard.
block
Yeah,
them, Notre Dame's front was really good. If you can't block them, we'll get the ball out quick.
yeah,
Like why are we trying to launch the ball downfield? That's like not what we've been all year. You know, we were a dink and dunk offense, and it's like now we're just gonna just throw up, Hail Marys every other play.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's so much from this season. There's so many questions I have just recruiting wise, just what does the future look like? I know there's like some House bills coming that could bring things like contracts into play, and that's gonna be something else I gotta add to my resume of that. So
contract negotiation.
Yeah.
yeah.
uh, John,
So
why don't we go ahead if you had something.
I was just gonna say, so you're the recruiting czar for college football. Fix it today.
Okay. Just the whole process.
Yeah. Like what would you do from top to bottom, from Georgia high school, from your perspective at Georgia high school recruiting, all the way up to, you know, D1 or whatever? Like
Okay.
what are the solutions from where you sit?
Well, my first solution is to have one transfer window
Right?
for for colleges. I think for continuity for school and everything, you do it after spring ball, let them transfer over the summer, acclimate. But I think that allows colleges to and coaches to actually build a program, right?
I would agree
I
with that.
I think that helps. I also think having one signing day, December for Division One teams. December is the day because now that you have that continuity with the transfer portal, well, let's build continuity with the signing day so that everybody's on the same page. If I could snap my finger or two, I would say like bring contracts into play with a minimum and punish the player and the other institution for leaving. You know, if you want to quit on your team and go somewhere else, that's fine. You can go, but you're not just going to go for free. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? It's one of those things where it's like the NFL, you can't just get cut. There's dead cap space, there's waiver wire. You could get picked up by a team you don't want to play for, So I think bringing in contracts, making them a little stickier to the home institution. So if I sign, like I said, Jim Wood, 5-star Milton tailback, UGA, I'm going to sign him to a 3-year contract, 3-year scholarship, and Auburn comes in, and they offer him the Yellowwood man bag, and Auburn should then have to reimburse the University of Georgia for every penny they invested in Jim. That's how I feel about it. I
How
think
do you think that you could also layer in like medical reviews? Like you have to actually pass like a medical exam
you
before
could.
you
I mean, you could have physicals that you have to pass,
physical,
just
yeah.
like the NFL. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff that you could do, but I think there just has to be more uniformity on transferring out, transferring in, signing players, and NIL management. Now, look, if a school wants to pay a kid $19 million, that's on you. Okay? If you feel good about that, that's on you. Is that sustainable? No, it's not.
Yeah.
So
I do think
I
that there
don't know
needs
if
to
it.
be salary caps in some way, shape, or form, because otherwise you're going to get into the situation to continue to use the European soccer model. Like, you know, in the EPL, there's no salary caps, which is why there's always like a consistent top 5 teams, and there may be like a Cinderella story here and there, but generally speaking, it's 5 teams that really have a chance to win the
Well, how
championship.
how boring has Major League Baseball gotten? Like, oh, look, the Dodgers signed another guy. Like,
Right.
it's like, oh my gosh, man, like good for you for having all this money to blow, but like it's I'm gonna be long gone and they're still gonna be paying these guys like their great grandkids with all this
Bobby
deferred.
Bonilla
Bob in
Day.
the day.
Yeah. But yeah, just like circle back, John, just like that would be kind of like the meat and potatoes of what I'd want to see. Besides like, a commissioner, there being a union for the players, some kind of common sense with the conferences. It makes no sense the way it's structured. And I get it's for money, but there's other ways to figure this out. There's other ways to make money. There's other ways to figure out, you know, it's like the NFL model, Fox and CBS go through the league. Fox gets NFC, CBS gets AFC, and it's
Mhm.
it's it's even. It's split. I
Mhm.
think that's how you fix it, but that's also much easier said than done.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, we've got
so
7. You have people that are minors. These are minors involved, like in some cases, 16-year-olds, right?
Yeah.
yeah.
Allegedly, right?
One thing I would
Um,
add to fix recruiting is bring back the fax machines on signing day. So,
Bring back fax machines.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. There's no tampering when it comes to that. You send that LOI in, it's over.
that's
At
right.
that.
That's
There's no.
right.
that's funny.
uh,
What about in the high school ranks? Because you had mentioned like some shenanigans at the high school level, right?
So I've become super pessimistic to just the whole process, like the mega camps and you know, there's so many. I mean, I have kids on my team who are guilty of this, who I think they care more about getting a graphic and posting it on social media than the actual offer itself. I think they want the likes and all of the fanfare that comes from that rather than the substance of the offer.
hmm.
You know, I could get them an offer from like Huntington College in Montgomery, Alabama, which is a Division III school. And it's like they would care more about getting to post something on Instagram than the actual like understanding what goes into that. You know, I think there's money has reared its ugly head in the sport. We treat some of these 5-star players like they're NFL guys, and they haven't accomplished anything. They haven't accomplished anything. We had a player in the state last year that just every time you turn on GPB or anything, they would just kept saying his name over and over and over and over and over. And it's like, what did the kid ever win?
Hmm.
when he was at that school. He played for a powerhouse program, couldn't win a state championship, but we've fallen over him like he's the second coming of whoever. And it's like we get so caught up in these recruiting rankings and 247 rivals and on three. And it's like, has anyone really like gone in and saying like who panned out and who didn't? Like, do they go back and say like, hey, we rated 30 kids as 5 stars. How many of them actually panned out last year?
Right.
How many of them were all conference? How many of them were like honorable mention all conference? How many got drafted? How many
I mean, haven't they
won?
done that? They've done that analysis though. I feel like if you are a 5-star recruit, you increase your likelihood of being drafted by X%, and that basically just outlining that as you got down into the lower stars, the less likely it was that you were going to be drafted into the
Yeah,
NFL.
unless you're Dan Jackson.
Yeah, I mean, there was always outliers, but
Yeah.
like overwhelmingly 5 and 4-star players are more
Mhm.
likely to get drafted than 2 and 3-star players.
Oh, there's no doubt. There's no doubt. I think the problem
And
you
out doesn't really matter in that regard, I guess, is kind of what.
well, you see so many of these recruiting camps that come out and they get these kids to come pay $70 and the line is 2 hours long and they catch 2 passes the whole day.
Ah,
And you see
that's
it's prevalent. It's super prevalent. I tell my kids, I said, look, if you have some schools that you feel you can play at, go to their camp. If you feel like you can play at Mercer, go to Mercer's camp because
Hmm.
there's other schools there. Like Georgia is really good about this when they host their passing league in the summertime. They have schools, like all kinds of schools there. Like they'll have Arkansas State and they'll have Charlotte and they'll have Coastal Carolina and just throwing out names.
Hmm.
hmm,
And they do a good job. Kirby does a good job of trying to help those kind of programs out.
that's cool. I
You're
didn't
not
know
going to
that.
see Auburn, Alabama there because
Right.
Yes,
but
FTMF.
right. But you see Jacksonville State, you'll see others, Kennesaw State, you'll see teams that Georgia ain't worried about, coming and helping. But at the same time, like I feel like recruiting has gotten so watered down. Like it's just we fawn and fawn and fawn over these kids and treat them like gods. Then you wonder why when they get to college, oh, why'd that kid not pan out? Or what happened to him? Or, oh, he was a 5 star. Why didn't he do this? And it's like, well,
Is
man,
is it still that way with the way that the transfer portal has been though? Because I feel like that I don't know. This is just my perspective because I still follow it a little bit, but I just remember being super excited about getting all these 4-star guys like back in the day. But now I feel like the only thing that people really stand up and pay attention to is how many 5 stars you have, right?
yeah,
Like
I feel
because
like
because at the end of the day, you can go out and find someone in the transfer portal that actually has produced
Mhm.
and was a 4-star recruit and is kind of a known quantity at an SEC school or at a big group of 5 school
Yeah.
or was an All-American at West Virginia, kind of stuff. Like,
Yeah.
You hit the nail on the head, John. Like that's one of the biggest things I'm seeing as a trend, and it's things that college coaches have literally told me to my face. It's so Georgia just brought in a defensive back from UAB, really good player,
Hmm.
right? Well, think at how much less time it takes to onboard that kind of player than it would to go through a 5 star kid coming in as a freshman that you have to now de-recruit. You have to basically, okay, hey, you're here, but now you're just one of the guys. I'm not going to text you every day and sing your praises. You're one of the guys now.
he's been through orientation in that he's been through an orientation at a major college football program and has actually started his college career and knows that he's got to go to class and
Mhm.
schedule class and
You
study and
want
all that
kids
stuff.
that know how to do it, right? Who have been there and have proven that they can do it. So you're going to see a lot of schools like Georgia and Alabama who are going to supplement their rosters. You might grab a guy or two, like I know Georgia got two really talented receivers. Those are positions of need that you
Hmm.
need those. But then they're supplementing with guys that they're also recruiting, right? So it's kind of like you're hedging your bet. It's like I'm going to bring in this safety from UAB. He played at a smaller school, and I'm going to hedge my bet. I'm going to say, okay, hey, I think he can play, but I'm also got this 5 star that I brought in behind him, right?
Hmm.
So it's like the ultimate thing. But the problem, the other thing you realize too, and a lot of smaller schools feel this way. It's like it's almost like if they have a good player, they're just like, no, well, it's fun coaching you. We'll see you later, because they know at the end of the year that player's gone,
Mm.
Right.
and it makes it so much hard. Like I have a lot of players on our team that have, I would like they have group of five offers. A lot of them do. Those kind of schools, I think, are going to be easier to get offers from. I think the bigger schools are going to gobble up the five-star kids, the high-end portal talent.
Hmm.
I think your Troy's, Georgia Southerns, Kennesaw States, Georgia States, they're going to be, hey, I can go pluck Bama's third string safety. Hey, I can go get the backup right guard from Ole Miss. But also, you got to think some of these kids are coming from NILs at big schools, and it's going to be kind of a culture shock knowing that you're not going to make $70,000 a year at this group of these G5s, right? So a lot of those schools too, they build their rosters organically, and then they get punished for being good coaches. They
Hmm.
get punished for having good schemes. They get punished for being successful, and those kids get poached by the bigger schools. And I think it's all becoming like it's like a feeder system. It's like Major League Baseball. It's like you have single A, double A, triple A. It's like I think that's how it's gonna. I think that's almost how college football feels like it's going.
Mm.
Is like you're gonna have your small feeder schools who are like, you got your JUCOs, you got your group of fives, you got your FCS teams, um, and that's why I feel like to create some kind of momentum for some of these schools, it would make sense to have a college football playoff for a G5.
Right.
You're going to get
Right.
as much money, but if FCS can do it, why can't G5 do it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, and I just think there's something to be said to be able to compete, to know that I'm the head coach at Samford University in Birmingham, Alabama, and I've got an opportunity to win a national title because it's apples to apples. Samford knows when they come to Sanford Stadium that they're going to get their ass kicked 50-0, and they have no shot. They
Yeah.
have no shot,
Yeah.
and I think that would be pretty cool addition if we're going to do all this, and I,
That would
I
be
think
cool. One thing that also I feel like is happening, and you're seeing it with some of the NIL deals that are actually out there, is we talk about the NFLification of college football. That's panning out in how positions are compensated. So like you got quarterbacks that are making millions and millions of dollars. You've got wide receivers making millions of dollars. Maybe the left tackle's making good money, but the running backs, they're not nearly able to bank as much money because of the trickle down effect of how the NFL handles running backs, right? Like you're not spending millions and millions of dollars on these running backs, whereas historically, particularly in the SEC, you got Herschel Walker, you've got Bo Jackson, you've got all these guys that probably were paid millions of dollars, adjusting for inflation, however you want to put it, but like I feel like that's also something that's gone away too.
yeah,
Is that there's more emphasis on positions that are going to impact it, and some of that's the analytics that have come out, and
Mhm.
how do you impact a team, and it seems like that the wide receiver position is overwhelmingly one of those positions that Georgia historically hasn't really had a whole lot of success with, but yeah, I mean that's something else that I feel like we're seeing too. Like you mentioned, your running back that didn't get any D1 offers.
It's wild to me, and I think one thing too, and I forgot to mention this earlier. I had an interesting conversation the other day with somebody. Watch what North Carolina does over the next
Mm.
couple of years with Bill Belichick being in Chapel Hill, or Chapel Bill as they call
Dude, the Chapel Bill shirts are amazing. I'm not gonna lie.
it. He's hired an entire NFL staff.
And he brought in a GM, right?
He brought in Michael Lombardi, who was with him in New England. Watch how they handle all of this, because I think they may set the precedent on how to run an internal cap, like you talked about having positional value and stuff. But you also talk about a head coach who's notorious for value,
Mm.
right? He's instead of going to get a $20 million wide receiver, he's going to go get five $4 million wide receivers and say, I'm going to hedge my bet that one of these guys is going to pan out.
Hmm.
Right.
Especially since he can't especially since there's no salary cap or anything like that. You just have to be under the threshold for players,
Yeah.
which is still better than the NFL.
Right. And then there's going to be some programs that are going to just have better budgets than others. I don't know what North Carolina's budget looks like, but I think you might see a lot of schools copy that template if it works. If
Yeah.
Bill comes in and has success in year one, year two, I think you're going to see more schools go to that NFL model of having a GM, having people in there, mathematicians that handle, finances and figuring out, who gets paid, who doesn't get paid. If in a perfect world, I just wish you just pay every player the same. You just say, here's the pot of money. Here's 10 million bucks. We're going to divide that by 105 kids. That's what you get. Everybody
Mhm.
gets the same, right? But that's the world's not perfect, right?
Yeah.
You're also talking to the guy that, I think there should be 8 teams in the playoff, not 12. I think eight's perfect, but it's, I worry for the sport for a lot of, I just like it does with everything. Money corrupts everything. Money ruins a good thing. Look, I know the old saying is, have you ever seen a sad kid on a jet ski? No, I've never seen a sad kid on a jet ski, but I think there's something to be said too for just the stories we grew up with. And at
Mhm.
risk of sounding like I get off my lawn guy, I'm only 36,
Jim is
but
the president of Get Off My Lawn.
I loved the walk-on stories. The Roderick
Yes.
Blankenship's getting a scholarship. I love the college kid grinding it out because college shouldn't, it's not for everybody. No one's entitled to that. It's a privilege, not a right. And we've turned a privilege into a right through all of this stuff. It's like, well,
Mm.
I'm a college player. I'm entitled to this. I'm entitled to that, or I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And I think what made the sport great too was regionality.
Mm.
Yeah.
And I don't give a crap about USC versus Rutgers. I don't give a crap about Stanford versus Syracuse. You know, Georgia versus Texas felt like a non-conference game when it was played.
Mhm.
And then when they were in the SEC championship, I'm like, what is this? This is this is absurd to me. Like, and here's what's going to happen. It's going to nothing ever stays the same. Look at the NCAA tournament for basketball.
Mhm.
Let's get 74 teams. Let's screw it. Everyone's in. Everyone, we no more regular season. NCAA
The
tournament start.
Carabao Cup.
Jim Herrick used to lobby the NCAA tournament should disagree everyone, like cancel conference championship games or
Yeah,
conference championship tournaments, and it's just one huge NCAA tournament.
yeah. Just
Uh,
and I worry about that too for the college football playoff because I hear about it going to 16 teams, and I'm like,
yeah,
those teams are not. You're worried about teams that weren't going to win it anyways.
Yeah.
there's maybe
I think
six.
I think it should be six. But
I, John, that's music to my ears. I thought four was perfect, but if you were going to expand it, I was sitting there saying, okay, this is back when we have Power Five. I'm like, you need five conference champions, three at large. You have to make being a conference champion matter. I don't care if it's a five-loss team; they won their conference.
Yeah,
Well, it's like, well, they're not as good as the SEC. Well, then you'll know real quick. You're
yeah,
gonna know real
yeah,
quick. Okay,
yeah,
it's it it's one of those things where like that'll all sort itself out. I
yeah.
don't want to hear from Ole Miss. I don't want to. They had their chance. You lost at home to Kentucky, bro. Terrible. Okay, I'm sorry, Hunter, but you lost.
Hunter doesn't
Right?
care. Hunter's cool.
Alabama, when you lose to Vanderbilt, you lose all ability to have any type of argument or rebuttal about what you should or should not be entitled to. I
Yeah,
don't want to hear.
yeah.
I don't.
I don't think anyone really has an. I'll say as far as the 12 team goes, I feel like they got the D12 right. Like I don't have
Yeah,
any, and they. I've said this before. Like I feel like they followed their procedure, which I thought was good. I agree. I think 12 is too many. I think if you were going to expand beyond four and you want to have buys, go to six. My take, but and then
I thought
eight would have been fine. But
you go to you just first rounds on campus,
yeah,
semifinals, traditional bowl sites, and you're adding one game.
hmm
That's all you're doing, and you're rewarding a team for winning the conference championship. Like, why did Georgia not get Penn State's path?
yeah.
What
yeah, I
is
know.
that?
Yeah,
Like, and I knew the minute I saw SMU was going to Happy Valley, I was like, thank God SMU's in. They deserve to be in. They're about to get destroyed,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Same thing for Boise State. I was like, Jared Zabransky's not there. Kellen Moore's not there. They're fixing to get lit up.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
They had that tailback, great story. You're blocking, Power Five defensive ends. You're not blocking, 6'2", 285 nose tackles that play at Colorado State. Like, I'm not trying to be mean, but it's just different.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, there's just so much, and I worry it's going to go to 16. What's going to stop? Well, we need just top 25. The whole top. The regular season has to matter, and I feel teams were not punished for things that they would have been punished for in the past.
Josh is raging right now.
Yeah. Josh is so angry.
Dog Stats is raging right now.
He'll be fine.
That's okay. He
Um,
knows how we feel. We've told him enough times.
well, think of this: like Ohio State got beat by Michigan, and it didn't matter.
Yeah, I know. I
It didn't
know.
matter. Notre Dame lost at home.
At home
To
and
NIU.
that's the stuff that is kind of like I'm glad that the soul crushing loss doesn't exist, but like I guess that the makeup of college football, I mean, you could see it. I mean, you don't even have to look at college football. I mean, let's look at every sport that's going on right now, like SEC gymnastics, SEC baseball, SEC basketball, SEC football, like the top 10, 15 in the country of all these different sports. It's just littered with SEC teams.
Mhm.
Like we are not the same. We are not our league is different across every sport imaginable, and especially at college football. Like that, I feel like that there has to be a recognition that like that's nice that you play college football in the Big 12 or Pac-10 or whatever we're calling it these days, but it's cute. But the big boys are playing over here. The adults are talking.
And I guess like because I don't disagree with you, but I also say you got 12 weeks to do your talking. If you're a national
Right.
championship team, don't lose at home to Kentucky. If you're a national championship team, don't lose at home or lose to Vanderbilt on the road, which is basically Bryant Denny West or East or whatever. Like that's embarrassing. Like to lose that game in that and not just to lose the game, they were dominated on the line of scrimmage in that
Mm,
game. And you look at Georgia and their schedule. That's not the same. You know what I mean? That's not what Penn State had to go through. That's not what even close to what Notre Dame had to go through. But I feel Georgia wins the national championship. You know what I was waiting for? I was waiting for them to put Texas to where they would have, oh, their third matchup, Georgia and Texas. It's like,
yeah.
buddy, I'm so over. Like I'm so over. Like I don't want to play Texas. Like next year
Yeah.
when we come to Athens, I'm like, I don't. Great.
Yeah.
Like let's do this again. Yay! Because we're gonna play again in 3 weeks. That's fantastic. This is great.
Yeah. I
Um,
was happy to see them on the other side for that.
I miss like I just miss the regionality of the sport. And there was times like we've all been Georgia fans for a while. You both probably longer than me. I became a Georgia fan in 2000, so I remember that big win over Tennessee. But who was the top dog in college football during that time? Miami, USC. You know what I mean? Like the SEC was coming on, and the sport's so cyclical. There's times
Mhm.
where you're up and where you're down. It's like all of my in-laws are Alabama fans, so I would hear it every single holiday. Oh, the SEC West this, the SEC West this, and I was like, well, there was a time where the SEC West was trash. Like I
Yeah.
remember in the early 2000s when like Georgia won the SEC championship in 2002. Like that Arkansas team was trash.
Arkansas. Yeah.
You know what I mean? But then like the next year you saw that LSU team,
Hmm.
right? And then the next year you saw that Auburn team come out. But then cyclical goes back, then Florida comes out, and then Alabama comes out. So what I'm saying is like the sport's so cyclical is like we I think we could have got the parity we were looking for. We just left it alone
Hmm.
and let other teams just decide to get better and do something about it rather than everyone gets a trophy, everyone gets NIL, everyone gets TV money, no matter what you bring to the table. Like, think of the Rose Bowl, forever ruined. The
Yeah.
Rose
Yeah.
Bowl, Pac-10 versus the Big Ten. That was the game. And
That was
now
the game.
you have a team from Oregon wearing a Big Ten patch. That's like such so sacrilege. Like
Yeah.
but like John, I hear you 100%. Like the SEC is head and shoulders the best conference, but at some point, like I'm just a believer in the regular season has to matter. Like it has to. Like you can't just get people a pass for like hypothetical matchups because like I'm not disagreeing that like Ole Miss would have done the same thing to SMU. Like I think they would have. I think Alabama would have done the same thing. Well, I don't know. This depends on which Milrow shows up. But if second quarter Milrow shows up against Georgia, that again in a playoff they would have had a shot to win it. But
Hmm.
the thing is you you lost 3 football games.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You don't deserve to play
Don't
for the
deserve to
national
play.
championship.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
And that's just where I stand. Some people get mad, some people don't. But my whole thing, don't don't lose the games that you're not supposed to lose. Look at last year. Georgia controlled their own destiny and laid an egg in Atlanta. Whose fault is that? Georgia's. We had the
Mm.
opportunity to three-peat. If we beat Alabama, we three-peat. You cannot convince me otherwise.
Yep.
But
Yeah,
we
agreed.
walked into Atlanta and laid a goose egg.
Yep.
And that's us.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because Florida State didn't get it either.
Mm.
Florida State was undefeated. They won their conference championship.
Uh,
We will
they
have.
they should have been my take, but
I wouldn't have been disappointed. I mean, of all those teams, like I felt like Washington was the weakest one of
mm,
all teams.
yeah.
But it's just it's like I said, it's just we can debate this until the cows come home. I just worry for the sport in general. It's it's so different than it was the night we watched Ringo house that interception.
Yeah.
The sport to me just feels so much different. Like that night felt so magical. It felt like, man, maybe it's our time to make a run. Maybe it's
Mm.
our time to have what Nick Saban had.
Dynasty.
Yeah.
Dynasty.
Yeah.
And
It's a
it's
different
like
sport.
It
Jim likes
is,
to
yeah.
tell me it's a totally different
It is
sport.
a different sport. We're in a new era. We're in a new sport. You did, Andrew. You started to veer into something that I want to make sure we get to because it's John's favorite question. And so you
yeah.
mentioned the year 2000.
Mhm.
John, am I
The
allowed?
year
Am I? Yeah.
2000.
Am I allowed to ask this question? What's your
Go
Georgia
ahead.
story? What's your
Yeah.
Georgia story?
This is fun. I was a 12-year-old boy in 2000, believe
Okay.
it or not. Okay. Um,
You and Hunter are
so
babies.
we had moved a lot when I was younger because my dad was in the military. So they spent time at Fort Benning or Fort Moore, whatever. It was Fort Benning at the time. And, Fort Lewis. And, had never really been into like college football, had always kind of watched it from afar. But then we moved back and like when I really kind of took it's kind of when college football to me was kind of more of a national sport too. It's like all the games were starting to become on TV. So like I would sit down and start SEC on CBS. And I lived in Georgia. Georgia Tech sucked. I wanted nothing to do with that. And I was like, I just was drawn to it, like being in the in-state team, but also to like that I remember that Tennessee game and just watching like how like fired up everybody was. Like I remember the 90s, like Robert Edwards and like Quincy Carter, but like that game to me was like that's when I became a dog. And my first ever Georgia game that I went to was in 2002 because I live in the Grange.
Mhm.
Okay. So I hate Auburn. Okay. Bite me if you disagree. I don't care. They're 30 minutes away. You didn't have to deal with Nick Fairley stuff like I did after that. Okay. Now, I'm all for like
Cooper
hitting
Taylor.
Florida and Tennessee and South Carolina, Georgia Tech, like JD, if you're listening, the Tech is the enemy. I get it. But Auburn, to me, is who you want to vanquish
Mhm.
every single fall. And those fans are the biggest crybabies in all sports. They have their double standards. If a Georgia player does something, they're the first in line to point a finger, but then they're the first in line to take that same player who stole someone's wallet and make them their starting quarterback, Nick Martin. But so my first game, 2002, Jordan Hare Stadium, SEC East is on the line.
Mhm.
And I was in the opposite end zone of 70X takeoff. And all I know is the whole Georgia contingent stood up. I'm like looking around like, do I cry? Do I cheer? Do I do both? Like, and then I look up on the Jumbotron before they had the stupid just in your face one in Jordan Hare Stadium. And I saw the play and I said, oh my God, he caught it. He caught it. This is like that. This is the magic. And so it was
You
like
have to
during
put glasses on it.
Gotta
that
try to
whole
put
run.
glasses on it.
2000 had the Tennessee, 2001 had the hobnail boot, which was really cool. But like just being there in person in '02, like just like kind of following it. And finally, it's like, oh man, I live 2 hours from Athens. So when we go to a game, I've become the guy that only shows up for like the 4 o'clock or later kicks because I don't do noon kickoffs. I just can't. It's just you can you can take your noon kickoff and do whatever you want to with it. Um, and what I've done too with that is, um, now that I'm a dad, is it's something I want to have to share with my son. And it's been really cool seeing like, we were my wife's an Auburn fan, so she's gonna
You talked all this trash. They're crybabies. Oh yeah, I'm married to one.
watch it all the time. Yeah, but she's been to way more Georgia games than she's been. I mean, she's on a first name basis with the whole Georgia roster. I can't tell you, she can't even name like four Auburn. But so we were sitting in Sam's Club the other day, a couple weeks ago. I'll just send you all the video. My son, he picks up on things, and he says, "Go Dogs." And I said, "What?" He said, "Go Dogs, woof woof," like that. He don't say "sick 'em" yet. He
Yeah.
says, "Woof." So every time there's a football kickoff, it doesn't matter who's playing. That's what he does. Go Dogs, woof woof. Like, and it's the funniest thing in the world. Like,
That's amazing.
but
Yeah,
getting it, like, take him to his first game this year. He watches football. Like, he has his little toy cars that he'll play with, but he's watching the game. So that's been special to pass that on to him. I hope the game is as enjoyable for him as he gets older as it was for me when I was growing up. That's what I worry about with where college football is heading. Is
Mm.
you you were rooting for a bunch of college kids, man, that went and got hammered on Saturday nights, and they were just one of you. They're one of the guys, and now now they're not really that way anymore. But those David Green, those early years with Green was special. DJ Shockley,
Yeah.
David Pop. So yeah, that's my story. It's not as fun, I'm sure, as others, but it all started that night against Tennessee.
I like it. I like it. You're
Oh.
not me. The other guy you're talking to was one of the goalpost tear down people that night.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you'll have to go back and listen to the night the goalpost came down.
They're like John Powell. They call you by name. Munson's like, John Powell's taking the goes to the river. Don't even have a river nearby, but he's going to go throw it in there.
He did say, "Get the students off the field for God's sake," is what Munson said.
They were not keeping you off the field that night.
No, they were not. Talk about like I guess we could have gotten Andrew on to talk about from his perspective as a young boy.
Right.
So
Yeah.
we had an episode where we talked about that night. I had the perspective of the fan in the crowd fighting for his life. Jim had the perspective of the fan in the crowd, and then we had George Foster on, who gave a player's perspective.
Oh, that's awesome. Like, so you got like all three together. Like at one
Yeah.
time. Well, I'm gonna tell you, any game that you want to talk about, you just let me know. Because I'll tell you from my perspective, the one game like that I've been to that I will never forget for the rest of my life was the 2017 SEC championship game. And I'll
Yeah.
tell you why. It's double meaning to me. Because I also made a living in Auburn for 10 years before I got the job I have now. So normally that went well because we own them. But there's times where there's like it takes acts of God for Auburn to beat Georgia. So
Yeah.
I was there. I was there in Jordan Hare in 2017 when they beat us down. And
that was a beatdown.
I have a whole story about that game. I'll save that for another time. Maybe I'll post it on Twitter or something. But it's a funny story. It's a good one about my interaction with an old Auburn fan behind me. And it ended with him handing me, for my Coke that I was drinking, he handed me 2 airplane bottles of Jack and said, "I think you need this more than I do." And so the funniest part about all that, so a couple weeks later, like to beat them in Atlanta, like I remember vividly, I remember much more so the DeAndre Swift like nail in the coffin run than I do the Keely Ringo pick six. Like the Keely Ringo pick six, like I will always remember that game, but like that 2017 game was like when it's like I felt like we were back. I was like, Georgia's back, man. We're back. We're gonna be contenders with Kirby. He's the guy. Because before that we had no idea. There were so many things you were just like, is Kirby the guy? Is he? And then when that game happened, man, like I just lost my mind. Like I was sharing a box with like all these Auburn fans, and I was just like letting them know, like you can have your Mickey Mouse win. We got the real one. Like,
Yeah,
we'll
win when it mattered.
beat the dog crap out of you. Just
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one.
But yeah, I'm telling you, I've got a lot of fun stories about that stuff. But but yeah, man, I tell you that's a cool question that y'all ask, like your guests, because everyone probably has a little bit different story than
Yeah.
what.
Oh yeah.
I'll turn the interview on its head. John,
Uh-oh. Here we
what are
go.
your like what is your favorite like game that you've been to like as an adult?
Oh man, I mean, as an adult, I mean, is being a
Like
student
post
not count?
college
Okay. Post college,
that you've been to in person.
honestly, uh, I didn't really go to a whole lot of games when I had young kids for so long.
Mhm. I
And
feel that.
then
I feel that.
when Jim and I kind of rekindled our relationship with the podcast and stuff. I mean, going to the games with him and his family has been amazing, and going with my kids to go and see the game, having my family around with Jim. So like when we played Ole Miss, that's the game that I kind of go back to is the full experience. Like got to stay with him and his family, got to tailgate all day long, did the ESPN stuff. All it was like the whole 9 yards. And then like one of my favorite memories of Jim is like him coming downstairs and saying, "Man, we."
Yeah, yeah, that was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Ole Miss game is pretty awesome.
That was a good time.
Yeah.
I wish we
Uh,
had the fireworks for that one.
I guess mine. I mean, I feel like I'd be lying if I didn't say the Ringo, the natty, the first
Yeah.
natty. And so for that one, I went. My dad and I went. Um, and so that's like if I were to answer the "What's your Georgia story?" question, it's like I got it from my parents. They met at Georgia. We've talked about we had my dad tell that story on the podcast once, but like that's where my fandom came from. And so getting to go to that game with my dad, pretty awesome. And then some close runners up, I would say next Natty, LA went with my sister. And then another one though
Not-
too. The one that we like to say kind of like started so much for us with the podcast was the Clemson game in Charlotte. Like
That's true. That's a
yeah,
good one.
so
I
it
think
was
of
my wife and I went with my parents, and we met up with John, and that was like the first time we met so many people that we now know was at that game. So like John Smith, Hunter, we had never met Hunter in person until that game. We met Hunter at that game. Too many people.
Bobby.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Bobby,
Greg.
Greg, like I list the whole world, the people that we talked to at rodeo, everybody like. We met so many people at that game. That's a big that one was that's a special game. The beginning of that season,
Yeah,
and just all the friendships made. And the old we saw tons of old like so John and I are fraternity brothers. We saw other fraternity brothers that neither of us had seen for a while at that game too. So that's a fun one for me too.
it's special. And
Yeah.
I'll tell you, the Georgia Twitter family that
Yeah.
that we have like is really cool because I've gotten to know a lot of y'all through Twitter X, whatever I'm still
Yeah.
called
I still call
Twitter.
it Twitter. It's fine.
Still swear.
Um,
Screw you.
I've enjoyed getting to interact and mingle with all of you at the tailgates, and everyone's always treated me like family. Whether I stop by for 15 minutes or me and my family we tailgate across from Myers Quad because we park at South Deck.
Hmm.
So we're literally right across the street from Myers. And it's a great setup. Like it's so awesome to be able to park in South Deck, especially with a small child, and get down the elevator and I'm at my tailgate. And it's like now leaving, we can do a whole podcast on leaving.
I
Yeah.
was about to say you're yeah, that's tight.
Oof, yeah, it's a long wait too, buddy. You better have some beverages in that cooler to get you through. Um, but yeah, it's such a great group. Like I would name everybody, and I'd probably leave someone out, but like it's just like a whole collective group.
Yeah.
I keep up with both of you, Bobby, Jim, Hunter, like all that whole group, and crazy like with Hunter, too. It's like our wives are friends, like they hit it off great. You know,
Shout out Meg Jones.
yeah, putting up with Hunter, you know what I mean? Just
Yeah.
and congrats to them on their beautiful son, Truett. So, but
I
yeah,
can't wait to meet Truett at one of the tailgates.
I feel so bad for Megan because that child looks just like his daddy. But
That was always one of my
That's great.
favorite things to hear my wife say is like, everybody says that they look like you. Like I carried this child for 9 months.
you're
Yeah.
like, dang, yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah.
too good.
It's such a tight knit group and it's fun and y'all do a great job with this podcast. You know, it's a lot of fun. Love the community. Whether or not they agreed or disagree with what I said, it's fine.
That's all good.
I think you'll find
You
that most people probably agree with you.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's kind of like we're all on this train together,
know,
and there's the folks in first class that are just rolling with it, and there's the folks in the in the steerage or whatever that's like, this sucks. Can
yeah,
we change this, please?
it's getting very close.
Unsubscribe.
Like I'm getting very close to not caring about conferences or anything. I'm just going to be a Georgia fan, and
Yeah,
whoever's in your schedule, I'll be there. The
yeah.
rest of it, I don't care about. You know,
Yeah.
like if Stanford wants to play in the ACC, God bless them. I don't care about. You know, Cal wants to play in the, you know, the WAC or whatever. I just don't care. Like it's getting that way for me, where it's like I'm less worried about the conference and more worried about just what's Georgia doing? What's the best thing for Georgia? You know,
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's fun seeing Georgia become, you know, good at more than one sport. You know what I mean? Like just seeing like right now, like I know we're all caught up on basketball, but I'm gonna tell you, I had no expectations this year. Never really have. Baseball though, I think this is a special team. I think even without Charlie Condon and Corey Collins with this group, I think they have what it takes to go to Omaha. And I'm
Um,
excited to see what they do. Foley Field looks beautiful. All the renovations they did. I can't wait to get out there. Basketball will come around. It takes time. It takes time, and we're all learning to navigate this new NIL era, man.
yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think just be patient. We've never been good at basketball, so to act like we're entitled to be a 25 win team is
Jim's
absurd.
angry.
We were good when I was in school, but that's a story for another day.
Just let it. Just it'll be all right.
But hey, Fletcher, basketball minute. It just happened.
Basketball minute. Nailed
We
it.
just-
Nailed it.
and I'll say I wore my '90s baseball hat for a reason. So
That should be
I'm with you.
worn every Sunday
Oh
at
yeah, I
Foley.
totally agree. Totally agree.
That uniform is fantastic, and I may have been an industry plant with the basketball minute, so don't worry about that. I'm kidding.
Too good. Well, man, this has been too fun. This has been awesome. Love getting to hear your Georgia story, your perspective on recruiting. Been a blast. Make sure we tell where can folks find you, Andrew.
Just come find me on Twitter. I'm with all the rest of you, mucking it up in the comments. So at Caraway6, my handle, and then I'm pretty accessible. Just search my name on Instagram or Facebook if you want to. That you'll get the more mild version of me there.
Sure.
But yeah, Twitter's always a good time.
Cool. Cool. Awesome. JP, what do you got to round us out?
I got nothing else. I mean, I could probably talk to him about recruiting stuff all the time, but I guess if your son was going through the recruiting process, what advice would you give him if he was aspiring to be an athlete in this
I've
world?
actually been thinking about this. It's a good question. If I had to give some advice to my son, I would say go where you're wanted because I think that's going to be the best experience for you. You go to college to earn an education to make a career down the road eventually. Some people need it, some people don't. I think if you sacrifice that experience for a couple grand, I think you're losing out on something pretty special. I think my advice to him would be go where you're wanted and go where you have the opportunity to have the most success for yourself. And if that's at a smaller school, so be it. If it's at UGA, awesome. If he's one of the best players in the country, awesome. You do you, man. But my advice to him is just do what made him happy and what made him feel like, I always tell our kids recruiting is all about the right fit and you got to find the right fit for you. So that would be my advice to my son is find the right fit for you and go where you're wanted. Don't try to force something that's not there.
And if you
Nice.
go to Florida, you're dead to me.
Too good.
Good times. Thanks for joining us, Andrew. I know that you have possibly midnight wake up calls or early mornings, but anyway, thanks for taking the time.
No problem.
Awesome. Go
Awesome.
dogs.
Go
How
dogs.
about 'em?